Dr. Kara's computer got a little funky, so she's going to pop right back on. So sorry for a little late, but good morning. Today we're talking about skin issues and how it relates to our gut health. It's one of those things, skin. So usually for younger women, it is acne, and obviously eczema, and are two of the biggest skin conditions when people are younger that are directly related to gut health and food sensitivity. So one of the things that's amazing about being a naturopathic doctor is that we get to kind of not only help the patient feel better, but also try to solve what the deeper underlying issue is so that we correct balance. And I practiced pediatrics for years and years and years. And it was like almost like magic working with kids with eczema and a lot of allergic skin inflammation. They would come, they had been at their pediatricians, and they had had a lot of different steroids or sometimes antibiotic creams, and everything was sort of a topical treatment. And they would get some results, but usually the eczema would come flaring back, or, and then some people felt if the eczema was on the face for children, using steroids long-term on the face is not acceptable. So they came searching for other answers. And one of the best things about my job was getting to say, oh, you know what? I mean, this is not rocket science at all. But this is a direct reflection. It's like a vent. The skin is being used as a vent for internal inflammation and gut inflammation. And so with eczema, it's pretty easy. Dairy is usually the culprit, especially in small children. Sometimes it could be other things like soy or gluten or just a total load issue. And so what we would try to do is remove what I thought was the most offending food, or sometimes we would use food sensitivity tests to help drive the decision, especially if children or adults need to make lifestyle changes. And as children, it can be so challenging. So sometimes the testing was really, really helpful to just say, you're really reacting. Oh, good. There she is. Hi. You're really reacting to certain foods, and if like all the dairy was reactive, it can lead and help both parents and children stick to a treatment protocol. And a lot of times that treatment protocol would be like, okay, let's remove the offending food. So if we're talking about eczema and children and dairy, it was usually dairy. Remove the offending food for 2 to 3 months, let the skin heal, let the symptoms heal. In the meantime, really work on anti-inflammatory, using probiotics, working on calming down the gut. When you're working with children, they're like superhumans. They heal like very fast. If you often suggest healing to children, they will, generally healthy kids. So the skin would clear. It was a very fun day at work because you'd come do a follow-up visit. Most of the time the eczema totally clears. People think, that you're sort of a miracle worker, and really all you're just looking at is this diet skin connection. Yeah.
Wait, I want to tell you about a patient that you're reminding me of, who was this poor little girl who would scratch so much on her stomach and her back that it was like bleeding and so itchy. That one was just remove dairy and see what happens. And they came back, 2 weeks later, and it was all completely cleared up, and she was sleeping better and so much happier. But the real issue was that the mom said, I'm buying so many less Band-Aids. Like, I don't have to go keep buying these Band-Aid packs. And I was like, how awful is it that the mommies have to go once a week or so and buy a whole pack of Band-Aids because this kid was covered in scratches and bleeding? It's like the things we get used to. We talk about this sometimes. We all get into survival mode, and I guarantee many of you listening are in survival mode just on these food sensitivities. And you don't need to be like this. Like, you can find out what you react to, take it out of your diet, and be better. But I myself am not motivated unless I see it on a test. So Hillary and I use these. We say every 6 months people should be doing these tests because it changes, and you have to do it so you know how you should be eating. I get into these kicks, and you do too, Hillary. I know you do too, but I'll get into a kick of like, I'm eating green beans like 4 days a week. I don't know why I'm into eating green beans 4 days a week right now, but they're yummy here. I guess it's fall and it's kind of like harvest time, whatever it is. I guarantee, like next time I do the test, it's going to say, "Okay, lady, you're eating way too many green beans. You
But
just
and
have to
so
back
do
off."
you think that that's an issue with the test? Because, I do think it's a worthy debate. Like, do we just make antibodies against things that we eat all the time? Or
Well, I shouldn't be having those proteins come in of the green beans, but I'm like constantly pushing.
why shouldn't you?
Because my gap junction shouldn't be big enough, I shouldn't have inflammation in my GI system. So it's probably, remember the last time we did the test that I did react to dairy for the first time ever. And then all these things are starting to get in. But we often react to the foods we eat the most often. And they're the things sort of triggering the immune responses. I don't inherently have a problem with green beans. I just can't eat it as much as I've been doing lately. So the test helps me know, like, okay, I'm going to start rotating. I'm going to take these foods out. It catches people who are creatures of habit, like myself. I have my go-to things. I get in a rut. I just grab the same things at the grocery store. I eat
It's
them over and over again, and it's like go to. I have them at my desk at work and I just like constantly eat the same things. And so do all of you listening. And the nice thing is that the test tells me like which one of these things I could get out and rotate. Fundamentally, I probably don't have a problem with most of these foods. It's just I'm like pounding my body with them. It's creating an inflammation.
Yeah. Well, we're okay. So today we're talking about skin, and so I think there's three main skin issues. Well, I would probably argue that most skin manifestations all are related to gut health, and the skin
Mhm.
is one of the biggest detox, or it is a huge organ, and it is an organ of detoxification, meaning that like what's happening on the inside will show up on the skin. So eczema for children, and obviously adults have eczema too. Um,
Mhm.
and but for the young children, like I said, if you have a young child with eczema and you haven't addressed food sensitivities, definitely please do. For teenagers, it's acne. So obviously hormonal stuff can drive acne, no question that hormones work up on the face. But
Mhm.
if you have underlying inflammation or skin issue or gut issues, it makes the acne so much worse. So we see a lot of teenagers who are reacting to sugar or dairy, or they're just too acidic, they're too inflamed. And
Mhm.
so a lot of teenagers, when they start to look at like, oh, whoa, their food choices, teenage years are the time when they often have autonomy on with their purchasing power somewhere along their world, and they tend to
Mhm.
choose things that we would not choose for them. And it's a really good time for educating them about if they're having symptoms in their body, how it can relate to the foods that they're eating, what are things that they can do to calm or slow down the inflammation, what does it mean to take responsibility to have a probiotic, to eat essential fatty acids, to know what foods you eat flare you, and then whether you have to have them out all the time or just during your time when you're more flared with your skin. For girls, that's going to be during PMS time. Um, how does that connect? So there's acne. And then for older women like me, I'm experiencing it right now, rosacea. So rosacea is when basically women like me, almost 50, get acne again, but it shows up in a different pattern. And rosacea has been linked directly to gastrointestinal health, whether there's an infection in the stomach called H. pylori, IBS, IBD, but there's some sort of dysbiosis. That dysbiosis fueled by or caused by food sensitivities. And like Kara said, eating the same things over and over. There are specific foods that are always tied to acne or skin stuff, whether it's eczema, acne, rosacea. Chocolates, acidic foods, vinegars can be really hard for people. Dairy can be really hard. But if there's a food sensitivity that you're eating, and alcohol, so rosacea, you're going to know, I mean, cute little Irish ladies or blonde ladies, like if we go and we eat spicy food, drink alcohol, have coffee, and like have kind of a bender weekend doing whatever, you're going to really show it on the skin. So it's another place where needing to be on an anti-inflammatory diet during the week, knowing what your food sensitivities are, keeping them calm during the week so that you can do what you want on the weekend, but just making the connection that it is related to your gut health. Now, the treatment for acne and the treatment for rosacea are long-term antibiotic therapy. They use the same antibiotics to treat them conventionally. I'm not saying that it's not necessary at some point for some patients. And I like to try, and Accutane is a whole different thing, but like typically for rosacea, people get put on doxycycline. For acne, it can be minocycline or doxycycline. And it's just one of those things that's like, okay, why are we using antibacterials? It's not really necessarily for the skin. It's actually like changing the gut dysbiosis, changing the bacterial overgrowths. So it relates on the skin. I'm arguing against long-term antimicrobial treatment without having done several things before. Like if that's what it comes to, fine. But like before, let's use herbal antimicrobials. Let's figure out, like, do you have a leaky gut? Do you have food sensitivities? Are you eating foods that are causing you inflammation? Do you have imbalanced heat in your body? Let's try to solve those pictures. And if we can get your symptoms down by 80%, can you live with that? And then can we use herbal antimicrobials and really look at your gut flora and bacteria before we just broad spectrum it and kill off a lot of things and potentially cause other issues down the line?
Well, the most concerning part about what you're talking about is that we have these outward signs. Our body is really sort of yelling at us with all these skin issues to heal our GI system. So one of the really sad things I see in practice is somebody's been doing this for 20 years. They've been going for facials every 2 weeks for their rosacea, which is just, it looks like little red broken capillaries because it's ultimately a little microvascular inflammatory disorder. And that bothers people on their faces. It bothers people. They don't feel like they look good, but they're doing all these other things. They're buying special lotions and serums and stuff and not looking at the GI. Or somebody comes in with eczema, they're 45 years old. They've had it all their lives since they were a baby, and no one ever shifted how they eat. And I just want to say we are a busy culture of people who have massive to-do lists, and it does help to see on a test a report of these are the things I'm reacting to. Sure, we can say, okay, everybody try and go off dairy for 2 weeks. I think that's awesome if you can do it, but I'll tell you, I'm not motivated to do that unless I see it on a test report. So it's such a shame that the body's natural sign is being ignored. Like, oh, let's do special washes. Let's do special treatments at the dermatologist instead of like, let's heal the actual problem.
Yep. And so that's where we're always coming from. Like, it's not that we're against conventional therapies or using them if people need them, but it should be after a lot of these more common sense, common connections have been worked through, ruled out, worked on, and that, we're not just reflexively going to, putting the fire out with the big guns, because
Right.
inevitably with the body, it will turn into whack-a-mole. And like with childhood
Absolutely.
eczema, what happens is if you just keep putting steroids on the eczema, eventually what happens is that child will progress to having a lot of allergies.
Mhm.
And it's called the allergic triad. So is this a cute triangle? Let's see. And it's eczema, allergies, asthma. Asthma is clearly the most progressed. So eczema starts out where the body's just going on the skin. Hey, a little bit of fire to say, I don't like what's happening in my environment. Something's not right. Something's not right. Something's not right. And then if we just keep ignoring it, then it's going to come here into the tissues a little bit deeper, into the nasal tissues, into the sinuses. You're going to have a lot of seasonal allergies. We don't listen to that, or we just keep saying, okay, fine, just take a Claritin, make it go away. But we're not treating the underlying why. Boom, all of a sudden that kid's going to show up, and guess what? They're going to get a cold. They're going to have wheezing. They're going to end up on a protocol for wheezing. And then before you know it, they're going to end on a low dose steroid every day to prevent their wheezing and asthma. And I'm not saying that steroids aren't a good prevention for wheezing. I'm not saying for asthma. I'm not saying that because there's a lot of data showing that. But why are we getting the asthma in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Children should not have that. Usually it's because there's this continual source of inflammation in the body, or that the child is sleeping in a room where there's a major environmental toxicant like mold or mildew or something that's happening that's driving this constant inflammation. So let's just look at the why before we start making the symptoms just go away and not asking why.
Right. And that's kind of the thing, right? People show up with something going on with their skin, and our training really makes us think about their GI system. But there's just something so worth it to really look at your diet and really adjusting the diet and really thinking about what am I putting into my body, and thinking of food as medicine and not just what I want to eat when I want to eat it, about really like, what am I putting in? What's the strategy here? What am I trying for? What are my goals? And if your goal is to get rid of acne, it's good to shift around your diet. If your goal is to get rid of rosacea, same thing. And eczema is just a bigger symptom of something going on. So it's worth doing.
The food sensitivity test group that we ran last time, I ordered a test and didn't use it because my daughter wanted it because she had acne and she has got a great gut, which is so awesome because she was a C-section. So I always stress that she wasn't going to have the right blah, 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 which we know is not true anymore because we were told that if babies were born by C-section, they were more likely to have that allergic triad because they don't get populated the same way, not having passed through a woman's vagina. And the good news is like, that's not totally true, but she didn't have food sensitivities, which was awesome to see because then I can really say, okay, this is a lot about hormone balance. And now we can do things about hormone balance and you look at foods from a hormone balance lens. That made her feel really good. And it makes her more motivated to work on the things that she needs to do to balance her hormones, sleep, exercise, get more essential fats, the treatments are often the same, right? But for me, I'm excited because my rosacea has come up more in my 50th year on the planet. I'm 49 now. And it's like, you start to see these are things that my mother had, my grandmother before her had. And it's like, you start to see, okay, there is some disposition just from my genetics. And now I need to really turn down those layers. I'm not dumb. I drink coffee in the morning. Sometimes I have alcohol. Like it is these things, but I'm excited to do my test this time around in our new group. So
awesome. We'll shake up your diet. All right, everybody, hop in if you're not in it yet.
because we're running a food sensitivity group. So fun to learn from each other and be in community as we heal. It's kind of the new way of healing. Bye, everybody.
Next time.